All right, today we're going to have a lesson on adding integers. I want to kind of prepare you with some of the different scenarios you might see when going through different integer type problems where you're going to be dealing with addition. Now, there are several different scenarios. We're going to start with the most common scenario that you're going to deal with. Let's say you have two integers that you're adding, and both integers are negative. So we have like -2 plus -3. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can handle this. One way of doing this is you can draw symbols to represent each number. So, for example, for the -2, we would put two negative signs to represent -2. And over here, we would do three negative signs to represent -3. And if we were to count up all of these negative signs, we would have a total of 5 negative signs. Therefore, the answer will be -5. Now, it isn't always practical to use the symbols. So what we can do is we can do it this way. Let's say we have the exact same type of problem. This time we'll say it's -4 plus -5. And so in this case, we're just going to think about the absolute values. So the absolute value, now the absolute value, it tells you how far a number is away from zero. It can be of a positive number or of a negative number. It just tells you, if you're looking on a number line, how far is this number away from zero on the number line. So -4 is four numbers away, or four digits away from zero on the number line. And -5 is five digits away from zero on the number line. So we're just going to look at these two absolute values, 4 and 5. So we're going to do 4 plus 5. Now, since they are both negatives, we can add them together because they have the exact same sign. Kind of like if you look at example 1, -2 and -3, they have the same sign and end up being -5. So 4 plus 5 is 9. Therefore, -4 plus -5 is -9. So I guess the basic rule here would be if you have two numbers that have the exact same sign, positive or negative, and you're adding them, then you just add the numbers and then you give it the sign of the two numbers in the problem. Now, sometimes you're going to deal with problems where you have two different numbers that have two different signs. So for example, we could have -7 plus +4. I'm going to start off by showing you this with symbols because it should be more clear. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 negative signs. And then over here, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 positive signs. And basically, a positive and a negative cancel each other out. And so if I have four positive signs, it would take four negative signs to cancel them out. And so what I'm left with is I'm left with three negative signs. I have one, two, three. I have three negative signs left over. Therefore, my answer is -3. Now, much like the last, or the very first problem we did using the symbols, if you're dealing with small numbers and you don't quite understand the concept, it's perfectly fine to use the symbols to kind of help you. But eventually, you're going to want to come up with another way of doing this where you don't have to write symbols. I mean, especially if you're dealing with numbers that are in the 20s, 30s, 40s, hundreds, even larger, it would not be very practical to write the negative signs when you have that many. So we need to figure out how can we do this if we are dealing with larger numbers. So for example, let's say that we have -15 plus 20. So in this case, I don't want to write 15 negative signs, but I can think about it. I can kind of visualize in my head. I have 15 negative signs, and then I have 20 positive signs. So what I want to do here is I want to think, well, how many more positive signs do I have than negative signs? Well, the way I do that is I'm going to subtract or find the difference through subtraction of their absolute values. So I'm always going to put the bigger number on top, the bigger absolute value on top. So the biggest absolute value here is 20. And I'm going to subtract the other number, 15. At this time, I'm looking only at absolute values. I'm ignoring their signs at this time, okay? So I'm going to do 20 minus 15, and I get 5. Now, I'm going to look back at my problem. I'm going to think which one of these numbers was the bigger absolute value. And in this case, the bigger absolute value was 20. Therefore, since it's positive, this will remain positive. So the answer to negative 15 plus 20 is positive 5. So basically, there are 5 more positive signs than there are negative signs. We're going to try this one more time just to make sure you're completely understanding this. Say in this case, we have negative 18 plus positive 11. Okay, so in this case, again, we're going to look at the absolute values, and the absolute values here are 18 and 11. That's how far negative 18 is away from 0 and how far 11 is from 0, just coming from different directions on the number line. So I always want to put the bigger absolute value on top. So in this case, 18 is the bigger absolute value. I'm going to subtract or find the difference between that and 11. So I'm going to put that down here. 18 minus 11 is 7. Now, again, what you're going to do is you're going to look at which one was the bigger absolute value. In this case, it is 18. And so I'm going to give it the sign of that larger absolute value. So this is going to become negative 7. Therefore, when you add negative 18 plus 11, your answer is going to be negative 7. It means there are 7 more negative signs than there are positive signs. All right, now our final example here. Our final example would be, what happens if I have more than 2 numbers I'm adding together? Not a big deal. Let's go ahead and look at this. Number 6. So we have negative 2 plus positive 3 plus negative 5. We can just stick with just 3 numbers here. What I'm going to show you will apply to however many numbers you want to add together. This is just for adding integers. There's 2 different ways we're going to look at doing this problem. One way is just, since this is all adding, we can just go from left to right and do it that way. So if I do negative 2 plus positive 3, basically, now I could write down on the side 3 minus 2 and get 1. But maybe at this point, you can do this in your head. You go, well, I know what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to do 3 minus 2, and it's going to be 1. And since the 3 is positive, and it's the bigger of the 2, this is going to remain positive. I'm going to bring down my plus negative 5. Now, again, in my head, I'm going to think the difference in the absolute values is 5 minus 1, which is 4. However, since the 5 is negative, the answer must be negative. So I end up having negative 4 as my answer. This is one way of doing it when we're just going from left to right. Perfectly acceptable doing it this way. Now, if you prefer, we could do it by grouping like signs. So for example, using the exact same problem, negative 2 plus 3 plus negative 5. What I can do with this problem is I can simply underline my like sign. So I have a negative 2 and a negative 5. And with those, I can just say negative 2 plus negative 5 is negative 7. And then bring down my plus 3. And now, negative 7 plus 3, I know that I'm going to have to subtract or find the difference between my absolute values. 7 minus 3 is 4. And since my larger number is the negative 7, I'm going to make this a negative 4. And as you can see, we get the exact same answer in both cases. Okay, this has been your lesson on adding integers. I appreciate you taking a look at this. The next lesson we're going to have coming after this will be subtracting integers. Have a wonderful day.